The first thing I noticed was the tea kettle. It was warm, not hot enough to burn me when I touched it, but just warm enough to send a prickle of concern through the part of my brain that had gone into mountain survival mode. Which is to say, a part that had only recently remembered how to chop firewood without taking off a toe, and how to correctly guess whether a mushroom might make me transcend dimensions or just die. I hadn't used that kettle in days. I stood there, holding the thing in one hand, staring at it like it might confess. It didn't. Obviously, kettles don't talk, not even weird ones from discount cabin stores that smell faintly of regret and aluminum. I set it down, then I checked the door. Locked. Then the windows, also locked. Then the bathroom, just in case some bear had figured out how plumbing works and was halfway through brushing its teeth with my toothbrush. Nothing there but my toothpaste cap, mysteriously chewed, but I chalked that up to raccoons or maybe the fact that I'd been going a little stir-crazy. This was supposed to be my getaway, my great escape from the human circus. No traffic, no deadlines, no Wi-Fi-induced brain fog. Just me, the woods, and my questionable ability to survive in them. But the kettle. I opened the cupboards and paused again. The crackers were gone, not all of them. Just the rosemary ones I hated. The ones I only kept around to make it look like I had taste. That's when the hairs on the back of my neck stood up in that old-fashioned horror movie way. Someone, or something, was out there. Worse, they had the exact opposite snack preferences. I slept with a frying pan beside my bed that night. I named it Carl. The next morning I found the socks. Clean. Folded. Balanced on the back of the chair like a gift or a warning. They weren't mine. The material was different. Smooth. Almost silky, but with little ridges like, honestly, I don't know. I don't shop for socks that look like they might also function as medical instruments. So naturally, I did what any rational, adult man would do in that situation. I shouted, "This is not funny," into the empty cabin and then stubbed my toe on Carl trying to look brave while limping. Nothing responded. Not even the wind. Which was a shame because I was starting to miss conversation, even of the howling variety. Days passed. More strange signs. The firewood pile replenished itself even though I hadn't chopped any. My coffee filters disappeared entirely. My toothbrush kept moving by a few centimeters every night, which wouldn't have been alarming if it hadn't somehow migrated to the kitchen by Thursday. Who brushes their teeth next to the sink where I wash mushrooms? By Friday, I had theories. Ghost, too cliché, time traveler, possible. But why would a time traveler waste their life tidying up and stealing crackers? Alien. Now we were talking. The idea should have terrified me. It didn't. Maybe because I'd already half convinced myself my ex had installed cameras to watch me devolve into madness for her YouTube channel. Watch Derek Lose His Mind in the Woods, Episode 7, Sock Intruder. It was a storm that finally broke it open. I lost power that night, sheets of cold rain hurling themselves against the windows like they were mad at glass in general. I sat in the dark, flashlight flickering, Carl close at hand. I heard it then. Soft movement. A shuffle, deliberate and quiet, not like an animal, not like a ghost. Something trying to be careful. I followed the sound. Through the hallway. Into the kitchen. Nothing. I turned to check the pantry. That's when I saw her. She stood half-crouched in the corner as if ready to bolt but not afraid, more like tired of being caught. She wore one of my flannel shirts, sleeves rolled 6 times and still draping over her hands. Her eyes gleamed in the dim light. Not human, not even close, but not monstrous either. Then there were the ears, long, tapered, twitching slightly like she could hear the flashlight buzzing. She was barefoot, mud on her calves. She looked, I don't know, like she'd been in the woods for years and somehow still figured out how to do laundry better than me. I lifted Carl. She lifted an eyebrow. "You can put the pan down," she said, voice flat, precise. "Unless it speaks for you." "Sometimes it does," I replied. Silence. Then her lips twitched, a smile, no. More like her mouth trying to figure out what a smile was supposed to look like. "I've been here a while," she said. I blinked. "How long is a while?" She hesitated, Since 1997. My jaw dropped. What? I picked this place because it was abandoned, she continued. It was quiet, remote, and the squirrels weren't yet in a state of organized rebellion. Wait, what? She waved a hand. You don't need to understand. Just know that I mean no harm. I didn't expect anyone to return, much less someone who stores cooking pans beside their bed. I named it Carl. Another pause. Of course you did, she said. I lowered the frying pan. Okay, I said slowly. Let's say I believe you. What are you doing here, like really here? I'm hiding, she said. Not from you, not from anyone on this planet, just things, bigger things, messy things. Like the IRS. Worse. I found myself nodding. We stood in silence, the rain tapping on the windows like it wanted to be part of the conversation. Finally, I gestured to the stove. Tea. She tilted her head. You don't trust me, she said. Not entirely. Yet you offer tea. Because if I'm about to be vaporized, I'd like it to happen over a warm drink. That made her laugh, or something like it, a chuff of breath, maybe the start of amusement. You're strange, she said. You're wearing my socks. They're warm. I made the tea. She sat cross-legged on the floor like furniture was a foreign concept. I asked her name. She gave it and I tried to pronounce it. She winced. You can call me Leora, she offered. It's easier for your tongue. I blinked. Is that a burn? Not yet, she said. But if you make tea at 203 degrees again, I will file a complaint. Did you just temperature snob my tea? She took a sip and didn't answer. That night she stayed in the attic. I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering what kind of insane planet allows this sort of thing to happen to a guy who just wanted to escape his phone bill. But part of me wasn't afraid. Part of me was curious. And somewhere, deep in my kitchen, Carl waited. The next morning I woke to the smell of bacon, which was deeply confusing because I hadn't bought bacon in 3 weeks, and the only pig within 100 miles was the decorative ceramic one in the pantry that held my spare garlic bulbs. I shuffled into the kitchen, wearing the same t-shirt I'd worn yesterday, possibly also the day before, and found Leora standing at the stove. She was poking at something in a cast iron skillet with a spoon that glowed faintly blue. Not normal domestic blue, this was more like might contain antimatter blue. Is that, I squinted, is that bacon? She glanced over her shoulder. Sort of. Sort of. She flipped a strip with military precision. It sizzled with enthusiasm. It's not from a pig. Oh God. Don't worry, she said. It's not sentient. That's somehow not comforting. I sat down, wary of the smell, which was too delicious to trust, and glanced at the table. 2 plates were already set, forks polished, napkins folded with origami-level care. One had been folded into a swan, the other looked like a nervous pterodactyl. You didn't have to cook, I said. You looked half-dead yesterday. I figured nourishment might improve your vocabulary. I'll have you know I have excellent vocabulary. I just don't deploy it before coffee. She poured me a mug without looking, somehow not spilling a single drop. The bacon, or not bacon, tasted like smoked heaven, which made it worse. I wanted to be morally outraged or at least suspicious, but my stomach had staged a rebellion. This is amazing, I muttered. High protein, 0 cholesterol, and technically still classified in 12 systems. I paused mid-chew. You're feeding me black market space bacon. I wouldn't call it black market, she said. More like borrowed biotech. I don't even want to know what that means. Good, she said, because I'm fairly certain you're not cleared for the terminology. After breakfast, we settled into what I can only describe as aggressively polite cohabitation. She didn't ask why I disappeared into the woods like a sad philosophical cliché. I didn't ask how she'd managed to hotwire my backup generator without touching a single cable. Instead, we carved out routines. She meditated every morning using a floating stone that hovered 4 inches off the floor and emitted whale noises in reverse. I took long walks through the snow, half hoping the forest would provide wisdom, half hoping it would provide cell service. She tinkered constantly, building odd devices out of scrap metal and melted snow, occasionally pausing to consult something that looked suspiciously like a levitating Rubik's Cube on steroids. Once, I caught her rewiring my toaster. I asked why. It was only functioning at 72% heat efficiency, she said. I like my toast that way. You like your toast uneven. It builds character. She stared at me, then added a low burn mode setting and labeled it Character Builder. We talked sometimes, not about deep things, not yet, but enough. She liked thunderstorms and disliked sarcasm. She liked fermented berries, but thought peanut butter was a strange horror texture. She was puzzled by Shakespeare and thought Macbeth would have been improved by orbital laser cannons. And then one night, about a week after the storm, she caught me watching her work with one of her strange glowing orbs. It pulsed softly, throwing light across her face, and she held it with the gentleness of someone remembering something old and painful. "What is it?" I asked. She didn't answer at first. "Then it's a memory. Like a recording." "Not exactly. It's a resonance anchor. It carries impressions, feelings, fragments, sometimes images. Like an alien mixtape." She considered that, sure. "Can I see it?" She held it out to me. It hovered above my palms, warm and faintly humming. For a second, just a second, I thought I saw something. Stars, endless and burning, a ship the size of a city, and voices layered on voices speaking in a language that felt like it was meant for stars instead of ears. Then it dimmed. I handed it back. She tucked it away. "Was that home?" I asked. Her expression didn't change, but something in her shoulders fell like a dropped thought. "It was once," she said. "It isn't anymore." I didn't know what to say to that. So I said the first thing that came to mind. "I'm sorry." She looked at me and her lips twitched in that almost smile way. "For what? You didn't explode it." "That's true," I said. "I've never exploded a planet." "Give it time," she muttered. "Your species has range." We sat in silence for a while after that. Eventually, she stood. "I'm going to recalibrate the roof." "You do that. And don't eat the green muffins." "What muffins?" She was already halfway out the door. "Exactly." Later that night, I found one of the muffins. It was glowing slightly. I stared at it for a long time. Then I put it in the fridge, just in case it multiplied. By the end of that week, I'd stopped pretending she wasn't real. Whatever she was, refugee, traveler, bacon supplier, she wasn't a figment of my isolation. She had habits and preferences, and an extremely firm opinion on the superiority of hexagonal screws over traditional Phillips heads. She was real, and maybe, just maybe, I didn't mind the company. It started with the chickens. Technically, I didn't have chickens. I'd entertained the idea once, in a fleeting fantasy about rustic self-sufficiency, but I quickly remembered I have the patience of a caffeine-deprived goldfish. Still, I left out scraps sometimes for the forest critters, mostly raccoons who, according to Leora, had achieved low-level sentience and extremely high levels of sass. But that morning the scraps were untouched, no paw prints, no overturned cans, no sarcastic raccoon droppings in the shape of rude symbols, just nothing. "I think the animals are avoiding the cabin," I told her over breakfast. "Good," she said without looking up from her device. "No, I mean all of them. No deer, no rabbits, not even birds. They're smarter than I thought." "That's ominous." She pushed a glowing dial, frowned at the result, and gave a sigh that sounded like a small math equation giving up. "It's probably the tracker beacon." "Tracker beacon." She paused. "Okay," I said. "That's not the kind of phrase you just drop mid-toast. Start from the beginning." She set the device down. It floated 2 inches above the table and began slowly rotating. Back when I first arrived, I had to disable most of my ship's systems. I didn't want to broadcast my location, and I definitely didn't want local governments picking up odd radiation signatures and sending curious drones. "You're saying the squirrels aren't the only ones watching us." "Don't flatter yourself. The squirrels aren't watching you. They're watching me." Still ominous, she continued. "I thought I'd shut down all traceable tech." But this, she pointed at the hovering device, this picked up a low-frequency signal 3 days ago. Intermittent, faint, but growing stronger. And that means, she hesitated, it means someone might be looking for me. Someone not from Earth. She nodded, I blinked, then poured more coffee. Okay, I said, I'm processing. That's faster than I expected. Give me a second. I processed, do they have faces? Who? The people tracking you. I want to know if I need to start emotionally preparing for eldritch horror, or if where were you going to plant it? She tilted her head. I was thinking Milwaukee. That's not even remotely close. Exactly. We stared at the device. It beeped once softly, like it was trying to be polite about impending doom. Later that day, I found her crouched behind the woodshed, adjusting something that looked suspiciously like a snow shovel but was glowing at the handle and humming a tune that sounded like intergalactic elevator music. What is that? Distortion pole. For what? Blurring heat signatures, in case someone's orbit scanning. That's a thing. She gave me a look that clearly translated to, you sweet summer child. I leaned against the shed and watched her work. So what's the plan? I calibrate a trail of false signals, we plant the decoy, and then we stay quiet. If we're lucky, they pass over, scan the wrong coordinates and assume I've moved on. And if we're not lucky, then you get to meet people with more limbs than manners. I swallowed, should I be worried? She straightened, no, probably. That night I couldn't sleep, not from fear exactly. More from the realization that I'd accidentally invited a fugitive alien war refugee into my home, and she was now using the grill as a makeshift plasma diffuser. I found her outside, sitting on the porch gazing up at the stars. They're brighter here, she said without looking at me, than your home, than most places. Earth's atmosphere is chaotic, but your light pollution is oddly charming. You say that like you're rating a Yelp review. 3 stars, good gravity, too many mosquitoes. I sat beside her. Do you miss it? I asked. Home. She was quiet for a moment. I miss some of the people, and the libraries, and the fruit that doesn't try to eat you back. That's fair. She turned to look at me. Do you miss yours? My fruit never attacked me. You know what I mean. I sighed. I don't know. I left to get away from people. But now that I'm here, the silence is loud. She nodded slowly. Exile echoes even in peace. That's incredibly poetic. It's a translation glitch. I meant to say my butt hurts from this bench. We both laughed quietly. The kind of laughter you share when everything is about to change and you're pretending it is. 2 nights later, she activated the decoy. It pulsed once, flashed twice, then zipped upward in a quiet burst of light, vanishing into the forest like a firefly with a master plan. We watched it go. She didn't speak. I leaned over. You sure they'll follow it? They're not clever, just persistent like glitter. You're comparing a galactic tracking agency to arts and crafts debris. Prove me wrong. We went back inside. She made tea. I watched her stir it clockwise, which apparently made it more resonant with the 4th harmonic. I had no idea what that meant, but it tasted like mint and the possibility of survival. When I went to bed, I glanced at the window. The forest was quiet, too quiet, classic horror setup, but instead of fear I felt something else. Not safety exactly, but maybe trust. Which, considering the last time I trusted someone they ghosted me and took my Netflix password, was kind of a big deal. I woke up to a loud pop, followed by a smell that could only be described as burnt ozone with notes of vengeance. Running into the kitchen, I expected fire, or an explosion, or possibly the beginning of the end of Earth. Instead, I found Leora holding my Wi-Fi router, or what was left of it. Smoke curled from the plastic shell. A chunk of it looked melted. My favorite ceramic mug, the one with the moose and the inexplicable sombrero, lay on its side nearby, cracked in half like it had witnessed something unspeakable. I can explain, she said. I just stared. That was my router. Yes, and also a minor transmission relay node for a satellite that probably shouldn't have been listening in on this sector. I blinked. You turned my Wi-Fi into an interstellar EMP. Technically, the router volunteered. You're saying my router had agency. It screamed bravely, in binary. I sat down and stared at the smoking plastic. I was gonna binge old movies tonight. You may have just saved a star system. I don't even get HBO. She set the remains on the table and blew gently over it like a disappointed wizard. Then she sighed. The signal was getting too close. I had to overload the uplink. So we're safe. For now. I looked at my phone. No bars. Not even an angry red X, just the blank void of technological abandonment. Do you think the squirrels will let me use their network? Only if you're into nut-based encryption. That day we went fully analog. I chopped wood like I had a grudge against trees. Leora worked on a new device in the shed, something with fins and an unnecessary amount of blinking lights. I offered to help. She told me to go take a walk before you solder your own foot. Fair, I hiked up the ridge, hoping to clear my head. Halfway up, I saw the ranger's truck parked off the trail. He was standing by the hood, staring at a map with the expression of someone who just discovered the terrain was emotionally complicated. Hey, I said, trying to sound casual. He looked up. You seen anything strange? I swallowed. Define strange. Animals acting off, tech going haywire, lights in the sky, that kind of thing. I coughed into my sleeve. Nope, just the usual weird solitude-induced paranoia. He nodded slowly, still watching me like I might suddenly turn into a glowing orb. Thing is, he said, some of the satellites picked up an energy burst right over your cabin. Oh, that, I laughed too loudly. Probably a transformer or a microwave, you know how they get. He didn't laugh. A microwave. Very aggressive popcorn. He narrowed his eyes. You mind if I come up and check things out? I panicked, which is why I said sure. We arrived at the cabin and I whispered a warning to Carl, the frying pan, on the way in. Leora was in the living room, somehow managing to look both casual and aggressively non-suspicious. She was reading a book, upside down. The ranger noticed. You okay, miss? I like a challenge, she said. He wandered the room slowly, eyeing the tech, the scorch mark on the outlet, the slightly humming cabinet near the window. What's that noise? Bees, she said, in the cabinet. They're shy. He looked at me, I shrugged. We're hobbyists. He stared at the two of us for a long moment, like he was weighing the pros and cons of calling in backup. Then he seemed to decide that if we were lunatics, we were at least the non-murdery kind. Just be careful, he said. Too many weird reports coming from this part of the range lately. Reports, I asked, like what? Dead radio towers, melted antennas, signals bouncing off themselves. He turned to leave. I've seen strange up here before, but this is a new flavor. After he drove off, I turned to Leora. Tell me we're not being hunted by some kind of pan-dimensional space bloodhound. She didn't answer right away. Then, that's not exactly what they are. I slumped into a chair. Fantastic. She sat across from me. I didn't mean for this to happen. I know. Your planet is loud, and messy, and full of potato-based cuisine. That last one is a feature, not a bug. She smiled just a little. I came here to hide, not to draw more danger. I don't want you caught in the fallout. I looked around the cabin. The mismatched mugs, the folded socks, the scorch marks. I think it's a little late for that. That night we ate what she called comfort stew. I didn't ask what was in it. It glowed faintly but tasted like nostalgia and melted snow. After dinner, she showed me a map. A star chart, not printed, projected from a small stone she set on the table. The room filled with light, galaxies unfolding like spirals of music, unfamiliar constellations twinkling softly. She pointed to one cluster near the edge. This was my home. It shimmered with gold and blue threads connected like neural pathways. What happened to it? I asked. She didn't speak for a while, then it broke from the inside. She touched another cluster further away. That's where they are now, the ones chasing. They spread like mold. Do they always hunt people who leave? They don't like uncertainty. They don't like those who ask if things could be different. That sounds like my last office job. She laughed quietly. I looked at the projected stars and felt very, very small, but also not alone. So, I said, what's next? She turned off the projection. The room dimmed. We keep hiding. We stay alert. We keep Carl armed. I looked at the frying pan. It gleamed in the corner like it was just waiting for its hero moment. Guess we're in it together now. She nodded, guess so. And for once, I didn't feel like running. The signal came back at dawn, not the faint buzz we'd seen before. This was a full-spectrum pulse, tight and focused, the kind of energy signature that made Leora sit up straight and mutter words I'm fairly sure were galactic swears. She checked the sky with a handheld scanner that whined like a judgmental kazoo. They found me, she said. I was brushing my teeth at the time, using the last inch of toothpaste and what I now recognized as an alien-modified toothbrush that whispered affirmations in Latin. I spat into the sink. Do they come with a doorbell, or is it more of a sudden death-from-above thing? They'll descend, cloaked, quiet, they'll scan for me and if I'm here. Her sentence trailed off unfinished. I filled it in with mental images that involved either vaporization or highly bureaucratic abduction. We had 3 hours, maybe less. She started packing. I watched her throw things into a small case that expanded like a pop-up camper and folded down again into something that looked like a thermos. She didn't bother with clothing. She packed tech, the memory orb, the distortion beacon, a small cube labeled "Do not open unless you're absolutely sure it's Tuesday." You're leaving, I said. She paused. I have to. I nodded slowly, even though everything inside me screamed to argue. But what could I say? That I'd grown attached to her constant sarcasm, that the sound of her humming while repairing ancient wiring had become part of my definition of home, that I'd started watching the stars every night not for answers, but because I wanted to understand the places that built her. She saw the look. I didn't want this, she said. I didn't want to make your life harder. You didn't. You made it more interesting. She smiled faintly. That's one word for it. Do you need help? She looked around the cabin. At the stacked books, the humming cabinet, the tea tin with the loose lid, the frying pan now duct-taped to the door in case of last-resort diplomacy. Actually, she said, yes. We built the fake trail again, but this time we used everything. Every decoy, every reflector, every useless kitchen appliance Leora had repurposed into signal scatterers. The toaster became a pulse inverter. The coffee machine turned into a delay loop. Carl was mounted to the shed roof, spinning slowly on a motor, creating just enough interference to convince orbiting sensors that the entire area was a malfunctioning reality. We dressed in full winter gear and hiked to the ridge, where she placed a new decoy, one so strong it pulsed through my boots. It should draw them, she said. They'll think I launched from here. And then what? They follow the trail, I disappear. That simple. No, she said, but that's the plan. She stood there holding the thermos bag, looking at the forest one last time. This planet is flawed, she said. It's chaotic, loud, inconsistent. Thanks, but it's also honest. You can feel the dirt, smell the rain. The people smile when they're not required to. You don't get that in many systems. I tried to think of something profound to say. Something that would make this feel less like a goodbye and more like a see you when the galaxy isn't trying to murder you. Instead, I reached into my coat and pulled out a sandwich bag. She looked at it. What is that? Peanut butter and rosemary crackers. She took the bag like it was made of glass. You remembered. You never ate the rosemary ones. I figured you missed the option. She smiled. We hugged. It was awkward. Her backpack beeped. My zipper got caught on her sleeve, but it felt real, solid. Then she tapped a panel on her wrist, and with a shimmer her body began to fade pixel by pixel. Just before she vanished, she whispered, "Carl's yours now." And then she was gone. No beam of light, no boom, just absence. I stood there a long time watching the ridge, Eventually, I walked home. Weeks passed. Nothing happened. No ships. No satellites. No more muffin anomalies. The ranger came by once, said the odd readings had disappeared. I told him the bees in the cabinet had migrated. He nodded like that made sense. Spring came. The snow melted. One morning I found a box on the porch. No return address. No footprints. Inside, a new router, a bag of crackers, and a note that simply said, "Toast setting, 72% for character." I laughed until I cried. I reconnected the router. No more galactic pulses, just quiet internet. I even got my streaming back. And the first thing I watched was a documentary